so good to have you all here. It's so good. So I was away on sabbatical, so it's so good to meet you finally. There's a lot of good food on the patio, but there is nothing like their cookies with the dates in them. So do yourself a favor and go try those after the service. Have you ever audited a course before? You know what I'm talking about? You know, it seems like it should be such a freeing, liberating, pure way of studying something, doesn't it? I mean, learning for the pure sake of learning. I audited a course in college once. I have to be honest with you, it was like the most interesting looking course in the whole school, and yet I don't even remember the name of it. I actually don't even remember what it was about. I remember that I think I made it to one or two of the classes for the entire course. It was very similar to when I transferred from Tufts University in Boston down to Eastern College in Philadelphia, and my crew coach got me in touch with the head crew coach of Villanova, one of the top crew coaches in the country. And he made this incredibly generous offer. He said, you know what, Dave? Any day, Monday through Friday, that you want to come down to the Villanova Boathouse down on the Schuylkill River at 5 a.m., I will give you 30 minutes of individual free coaching any day you want. It was like the opportunity of a lifetime. So I got to the school and I looked at the syllabus and I tried to pick classes that allowed me to come back, a little bit later, and it worked out that I could have gone 4 times a week, and I thought, you know what, let's be realistic here. Why don't I commit to going 3 times a week, and I'll try to do that and see where it goes from there. And I was a little disappointed that I went twice in the first semester, and I think once in the semester after that. And I tried to do the autopsy. I tried to figure out what went wrong. I love crew. I mean, there's no better feeling than coming back to school and going to the school cafeteria at 8 in the morning, knowing that you've already gone through this amazing workout, knowing that as other people were just rolling around in their bed, that you were down there on the Schuylkill River pulling a Rocky Balboa, watching the sunrise over the Philadelphia Art Institute, only on the other side of the building down on the river. And so I thought, what went wrong? And pretty soon I realized that what went wrong is when I was in Boston, I had no choice but to go and be there every morning. I'm saying for 2 years, rain, sleet, shine, I was there, but it was because I had 7 guys waiting in the boat who would have killed me if I hadn't shown up, and I did not have a coach who said, oh, any day you want to come, just come on down. I had a commitment. It was a very public commitment. It was a commitment that had no back doors, no escape clauses. I was committed to that group, and it made all of the difference in my life, and it was one of the best things that I had ever done, and I loved my time up there when I was rowing. I want to talk today a little bit about the power of commitment, the power of being human beings and our ability to make and honor and keep commitments. Out of all of the animal species, we're the only ones who can make promises and keep them. Promises to a marriage, promises in our business, to friends, to each other, to God, even to ourselves. You know that if a dog could make promises, a dog would, and a dog would die trying to keep those commitments, right? But they can't. We know that a cat, if they could make a promise, they would make a promise, and then they would break it while laughing in your face, and then they would walk away in that little strut of theirs with their tail right up in the, you know it's true, I'm just saying. We human beings are the only ones who are able to make and keep promises. And so I want to talk about what that means in the face of living in a world and a generation and a city particularly where we are so commitment averse. I mean, isn't it true? We live in a commitment-phobic, keep an exit strategy, leave your options open, friends with benefits, DTR averse, let's not get tied down kind of age and generation, isn't it? We've been talking amongst the staff about this LA No. Do you know what that is? I'm sure you all have experienced it, where you send out an invitation and then a follow-up and a follow-up and a follow-up, and no one even gets back to you. And we're sure it's because people just want to keep their options open, right? In case something better comes along. Isn't that true? Don't we all know that that's the case? And I need to say right up front that I am part of that generation. That I have always had a problem making commitments. It took me 5 years to ask Yvette to finally get married. I knew she was the right one after the first couple of months, but I was scared to death. I had grown up in a broken family. My parents were divorced. I didn't know what a good marriage looked like. I was scared to death I would get divorced, and so I was scared to make a commitment. Once we got married, Yvette kept saying she wanted to get a dog, and I had a million reasons why we should wait till next year. Yeah, eventually we'll get a dog, until I realized that the issue is that I love dogs. I mean, I really, really love dogs, and probably two of the most painful things I had ever gone through in my life was losing the 2 dogs from my childhood, and I wasn't sure I was ready to commit to feeling that kind of pain ever again. It took us 5 years before we started having children. We both wanted to have children. I just kept saying, yeah, next year. Why, there's still so many things to do. And right now, I could break down and cry like a baby in front of you when I think about how much Ryan and Clayton have brought into our lives, and how much fuller and better and richer my life has been since they've been born, and how if I could have it to do over again, I would have had them 20 years earlier just so I'd have 20 more years with them before I died. This has always been an issue for me. And sometimes they say that preaching is one of the greatest things about preaching is you get to read and study and hear everyone's best opinions and think about issues that you then put together a sermon and it comes out of your mouth and it's as good for you as it is for anyone else who's hearing it. And this would be one of those times. And so I was delighted when I came across this small story in 1 Kings chapter 19. Now, 1 Kings 19 is a fairly famous chapter in the Bible anyway because of what happens in the beginning. It's the story right after the whole showdown on Mount Carmel between Baal and Yahweh and where Elijah has this thing, and then Jezebel is chasing after him and wants to kill him, and he ends up curled up in a bush wanting to die, and then in that cave, do you remember that cave? And he's listening for God's voice, and the earthquake and the whirlwind and the fire come by, but God's voice isn't in any of those things, and then finally he hears God's voice. Do you remember what it was? In the gentle whisper. Do you remember that? And usually we stop the story right there. We don't go any further. So no one really knows. Do any of you know what that gentle whisper said? Anybody? No, we stop the story there. But if you go on, the gentle whisper tells Elijah to get up, to go back, to anoint Hazael, the king of Aram, to anoint Jehu, the king over Israel, and then to appoint Elisha as Elijah's successor as the prophet of Israel. And so the very next verse after that famous story, it starts like this. So he, Elijah, set out from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, who was plowing. And there were 12 yoke of oxen ahead of him, and he was with the 12th. Now this is significant, we need to understand, because back in those days, if you had one yoke, if you had one pair of oxen, that was a big deal. You were a wealthy family. So for Elisha to have 12 pairs of oxen, this was a very wealthy man, probably from a very well-to-do family. Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle over him. And it's just a very simple verse, but I think there's something kind of significant to this too. I mean, I kind of have to chuckle when you think of everything Elijah's been through, that he's just had this huge battle on Mount Carmel. Jezebel, the queen's been chasing after him. People are trying to kill him. He ends up depressed under a bush and then in a cave. And so when he gets the word that he can pass this mantle on, I see him basically sneaking up behind Elisha in the field, throwing this thing over him and trying to run away without even saying a word, right? And so it says, Elisha left the oxen and ran after Elijah. Wait. And here we realize that Elisha understands exactly what this means, what an important, serious moment this is. This mantle of Elijah's, this was the symbol of his power and his authority and his office and position. Elisha knew he was being asked to be the next prophet of Israel. And so he follows Elijah and he says, okay. And again, this just shows how seriously Elisha's taking this. He doesn't have any other question than this. Let me go kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow you. And then Elijah says something that the scholars don't completely understand. He says, go back again, for what have I done to you? I was like, what? But I think what's going on here is that Elijah knows that Elisha comes from this wealthy family. And so basically, I think he's saying, okay, fine, go back to mommy and daddy. Go back to the trust fund and the keys to the Corvette. Sorry, Ken. Ken Larson just bought a new Corvette, so I thought I'd throw that in there. Have them tell you, yeah, your generation, it has all the options in the world. It has all the choices in the world. You have the freedom. You don't have to do this. I'm sure they'll convince you not to do it. But he says, go ahead. Do what you need to do. And so Elijah goes back. He returned from following him, and he does two really interesting things here. It says he took the yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. And then using the equipment from the oxen, the plows, he boiled their flesh and gave it to the people, and they ate. And then he set out and followed Elijah and became his servant. What strikes me about this story is the level of commitment that Elisha shows here. And that he does these two very remarkable things. First, he slaughters all of the oxen. And basically, I think this is a way of making a very public commitment. He uses it to feed his entire family and all of his community. It is a way of saying, this is something I have been called to do. This is something I need to do. I am committed to God. I am committed to this ministry. And I want all of you to know that there is no turning back. And then it says that he burns his plows in order to cook the oxen. And I feel like that's saying, okay, I am going to leave no back doors out of this. I am going to leave no other options. I'm going to close off any possibility of me going back to my old way of life in slaughtering these oxen and burning these plows. I am saying that I am fully committed and I am all in. It's interesting, isn't it? And so I want to ask you today, in your life, are there any oxen that need to be slaughtered? Are there any plows that need to be burned? Are there old commitments that need attending to? Are there new commitments that you should be making? I think part of the conventional wisdom in today's generation is that freedom comes in not making commitments, right? That if you want to be truly free, you need to avoid commitments at all cost. And I think we see it all over our society, but particularly here at church. I think there's lots of people who have questions and doubts about God, and so they use that as an excuse not to make a commitment to God. Where they say, oh gosh, I love the music at that church, I love the preaching at that church, I love the theology at the church across the town, but use it as an excuse not to join any of them. And not to settle down in a commitment with any particular group or any particular family. And to not get into all of the things that come with picking one. And putting yourself fully into it. I think we leave our options open sometimes on Sunday mornings. We say, yes, I'm going to go to church unless something else important comes along or something I'm expected to do or something that seems like a better thing at the time. So we avoid the commitment. And I think that there are people who get to the end of their lives, who've guarded their freedom so carefully, so jealously, and they realize that what has all this freedom gotten me in my life? What's happened to all of this time that I was so busy protecting? To all of this money that I wanted to have the freedom to earn and spend however I wanted to spend it? What's happened to all of these relationships that I felt so free to just exit and walk away from? I can tell you, as somebody who's grown up as a commitment phobe, that the most meaningful, powerful, important things that have ever happened to me in my life, the times that I have felt most deeply satisfied and most fully alive and most grateful, have all, and I mean all, come out of the commitments that I've finally been able to make when I've been able to get over myself enough to go ahead and make them. We are entering into this annual theme of Share the Love. And the theme of our sermon series this fall is why not share the love? But the truth of the matter is that we are not going to be able to share the love with each other or anyone who comes through these doors if we're not here. There are some disturbing statistics in our country and in our city right now. There are less and less people who are coming to church, less and less people who are joining church, and even those who've joined and are committed, they're coming less and less frequently. You need to be here. We need you here. This place is not the same when you're not here. We miss you. We feel your absence. There's a lot of horrible things that happen out in this world, and we have seen way too many of them right here in this congregation. But we need you here to be a community for one another, to be family for each other, to surround each other, to be here often enough to know what's going on and to be able to pull up alongside of each other and help us through the struggles we go through. But not only do we need you here, you need to be here. This world, it knocks us down, beats us up, knocks the stuffing and the grace right out of us. Isn't that true? I mean, we have been particularly mindful. Ryan and Clayton have just turned 7 and 9, and we are already starting to see it on the horizon. We're seeing things already. We're seeing the bullying that happens and the cliques that happen and this incredible pressure to succeed and to perform, whether it's in the classroom or out on the sports field, to be in the right circle of friends, to talk the right way and dress the right way and look the right way. And it takes our breath away and it scares us to death. And the one thing that we are convinced of down to the bottom of our toes is if we can somehow just manage to help these two children to feel like they are strong and confident, that they are dearly loved, preciously and uniquely created individual children of God, that will give them the foundation that they need and the tools that they need to make the right choices and to stand up to all of the crap that is just waiting for them out there. And we can do a little bit of that on our own at home, but they have got to be here in church every single week so that they can have God hidden deep down in their heart so that it will be there. God will be there when all of this stuff comes cascading down on them. You know, we have pretty much of a commitment to feed our kids at least a little something every single week. You know, we're pretty well committed to 52 weeks a year, week after week, to give them at least some kind of food. And I think we've become that much more convinced that for their long-term health and stability and their ability to thrive, they need to be here in church at least as often as we're feeding them. There's a story about a man, I'll kind of close on this, who was a hot mess. His life, he was lying and cheating and drinking and carousing and playing everybody in his life, his friends, his family, his wife, everybody. And he would always kind of try to make these commitments to God, and then he'd fall off the wagon a few days later, and it was just this constant back and forth. But he would always come to any revival that took place in the town, outside the town, anywhere near the town. He'd always be at the revivals, and he'd always make these heartfelt commitments. And one time he was at this big revival, and the preacher was saying, if you need more love, if you need more grace, if you need more forgiveness in your life, if you need more God, come and let God fill you up. And this man got up, and he's coming down the aisle with his arms raised. He's bawling. He's saying, "Fill me up, Lord, fill me up." And this woman who knows him stands up in the back of the sanctuary and she goes, "Don't do it, Lord, he leaks." Well, ain't that the truth? We leak, don't we? We all leak. We leak faith, we leak hope, we leak peace, we leak grace, we leak love, and we need to be here every week in order to be filled back up. What would it look like in your life if you were going to make a ox-slaughtering, plow-burning kind of commitment, first to God, but then to God's church and to this family and to being here? What would that look like in your life? Maybe some sort of public declaration to your family, to your friends, to this place, to yourself, to make this a top priority of your life, knowing that when you get to the end of your life and you look back, what kind of freedom you want to be able to see in your life. Is it the freedom of giving yourself in commitment to a place week after week and making that a normal, regular part of your life? Or is it the freedom that comes from having been able to pick and choose whatever looked shiny and brightest and most important on that given day? Maybe you'll decide that you're going to go out into this patio and climb into the crew boat with 7 other paddlers who are going to make you have a real commitment by joining one of our committees. And people who are going to count on you and expect you and trust you to come and help build this church into everything that God is calling us to be. What would it mean for you to burn the plows, to close the escape clauses and the back doors, to just decide you're going to say no to the Sunday morning sport leagues and the birthday parties and the hikes and the runs and the breakfasts and brunches and social opportunities that come along? You know, we said last week what the world needs now is love, sweet love. I think we believe that this divine kind of love is what could really save this world of ours. And yet, if we're going to be filled up and overflowing and spilling that love into the world, then we have to be in its path week after week after week. Because we leak. But you know, love loves commitment. And we are made in the image of a God who is committed to us all in, full on, unconditionally, no matter what, day after day, moment after moment, no matter what kind of stuff we get ourselves into. So come. Let us share the love. And let us start by sharing this commitment. Amen.